All right, chaburah, good night of Shabbos, good night of Shabbos. No, tonight's Yonason. Shekach to Yonason Kaplan for tonight's spread. Tremendous Shekach. We'll say again, where's Steve? Steve, Shalom Aleichem. Who are sponsors tonight? Sorry.
Seth Phillips sponsored it on Lang.
Shekach to Seth Phillips, incredible, and the bourbon is courtesy of the banquet. Courtesy of the shul. Baruch Hashem. Shirayim. Good. All right. Baruch Hashem. Shirayim are good. I will say so. Let's continue. So we have a very important piece ahead of us tonight. I think last week we really stumbled upon something that I think was transformative in many different ways and uplifting in many different ways. And the truth is, I think for many of us, just changed the way that we look at certain things. If you remember again, so we're picking up tonight on page 46, just to reorient ourselves quickly. So remember again, the Piaget was talking about the concept. Piaget was talking about the idea that, remember, we're speaking about the concept of inspiration. And ultimately, again, finding inspiration. How does one go ahead and find a sense of inspiration? So remember again, the Piaget said, the thinking person will often go ahead and kind of analyze and overanalyze every moment of inspiration and then come to the conclusion that it wasn't genuine inspiration. The Piaget's whole approach is when it comes to inspiration, if you feel inspired, what should you do? Go with it. Just go with it. Just ride the wave. Just go with it. But what if it's not genuine? What if so? Now remember again. Then the Piaget said, after you allow yourself to experience it, then the moment of introspection comes. And the moment of introspection is when you analyze: was this real inspiration, or maybe it was something else? Also, remember again, we gave examples of this last week's share, that sometimes you could feel good, sometimes you could even feel happy, but lav dafka that it's inspiration, right? In other words, inspiration is something that comes from a makom of kedusha, and at the end of the day, if it doesn't come from a makom of kedusha, it could be happy, it could be good, it doesn't have to be illicit, but lamaisa, it's not called inspiration. So after the moment of inspiration, or after the inspiration subsides, so a person has to go ahead and do that internal analysis to figure out, was this from a makom kedusha or not? And then I think the bombshell of the Piaget that our Rebbe gave us in last week's shir was the concept that, but at the end of the day, how do you really know if something is truly inspirational? And the Piaget said the litmus test for it is if you emerge with a greater sense of self-restraint. If I emerge from a particular experience and I am more in control of myself, I have greater self-restraint, that's inspiration. The definition of an inspirational moment is a moment that leaves you in greater control of yourself. And the Piaget posits that if at the end of a quote-unquote moment of inspiration, you have no additional level of self-control, then it might have been good, but that's not called inspiration. I will say, so if you take a quick look actually at the last paragraph, if you look at the last paragraph on page 45 actually, we're starting actually tonight on the top of page 46, but just take a look at that last paragraph. The Piaget writes, he says, "Avagam be'inyan hamemshala al atzmo, tzrichim la'das eis lehisragel ba." So I will say, when it comes even to controlling oneself, self-restraint, a person has to learn the art of cultivating that within themselves. Ki yochel lios shavodascha ad kol b'darkinu darchei b'nei Machshava tova, tova haisa, v'chisaron acher ma'atzra lecha shetimshal al atzmecha. So I will say, what the Piaget says is that sometimes when we're uninspired, it's not necessarily because we're not doing something in particular, right? It's not the pshat that I'm going ahead per se, and let's say lacking something or not doing something. Often the ingredient that's missing from an inspired life is what we'll call memshala atzmis. Memshala atzmis means control over the self. I'm not operating in life with a sufficient amount of self-control. So let's analyze this a little bit more. We'll say top of page 46, and this is really an incredible. This is I know every week we speak about this concept. It's the best piece ever. This is the best piece ever. We'll say look what he writes, page 46. Look at we'll say here he develops this idea a little bit more. Watch. Komem shala tzricha l'ruach hamoshel. We'll say in general, in order to have control over something, a person has to have a spirit of control. Okay, I know that sounds a little bit redundant. In order to have control, you have to have spirit of control. What does this mean? Kimo kol sar v'ish hatzava. He gives an example of an army. When a person is a soldier, right? A sar is an officer. Ish tzava is a soldier. Im lo yigalo bekirbo ruach givura, ifshar lo la'amod bekishra milchama. The Rebbe says incredible. What does a soldier need in order to be able to go ahead and fight a battle? He needs inner strength. He needs inner strength. Inner strength is what allows a soldier to go to war. Inner strength is what allows an officer to command his soldiers. Af im kocho rav harbe misonav kimo she'amra Torah ish hayor v'rach aleid yashuv lebeso dafka hayor v'rach aleid. Let me tell you this outside for just a moment. Then we'll look at it inside. The Piaget says something amazing. Piaget posits the following. He says, think that's just a moment. People often think, what is the most important quality that a soldier could have? So people often answer, strength. Physical strength. The Piaget says it's not true. It's not physical strength. It's inner strength. For the simple courage. But inner strength, he's calling it inner strength. You're going to see where he's going to go with this. Inner strength, why? Because they will say, the truth is, if a person has physical strength, external we'll call physical strength, but doesn't have inner strength, they can't succeed in the battles of life. Conversely, even someone who is technically weaker, physically weaker than their enemy, but has a greater or a heightened level of internal strength, ultimately could vanquish even an enemy who is physically stronger. Now watch how the Piagetsta learns this out, because this is incredible. He says, because if a person doesn't have ruach givura, person doesn't have a spirit of strength, inner strength, which we're going to, just so you know where we're going to redefine inner strength really as a sense of self-control. Person who doesn't have inner strength is unable to stand up in the midst of battle. He says, even if that very same person is physically stronger than his enemy, nevertheless, even if you're physically stronger, if I don't have inner strength, I cannot be successful in battle. He goes on, the Torah over here talks about, and the Gemara Sech Sota, we just had this not so long ago in Daf Yomi. The Torah speaks about, again, army goes out to war. So what happens when the army goes out to war? The Kohen Mashuach Melchama makes announcements, right, about the exemptions. Who are the exemptions? A person who got married and didn't live with his wife, a person who built a home and didn't get to live in it, a person who planted a vineyard and didn't get to taste of the fruit. And who's the fourth and final exemption? Ish hayare v'rach halevav. Right? What is yare means? Fearful. Rach halevav? Soft heart. Soft heart. Soft heart. Right? He says, listen to this. He says, Dafka hayare v'rach halevav v'lo amra ish hachalash. See, I will say, what doesn't the Kohen ask? It's interesting. You would have thought the Kohen would have said, okay, and who's the weakling? Right? Who amongst you over here is weak, is chalash, is physically weak? Because if you're physically weak, what good are you for the army? But if you notice that's a Piagetsta, that's not an exemption. That's not an exemption. The Kohen doesn't ask who's the person who's weak. Why? Ki kol yecholas hamilchama lehiskaber lichvosh v'limshal al asone beruach gevura teluya. So I will say this is incredible. Because at the end of the day, the ability to be successful in war and vanquish your enemy is not dependent on physical strength, but rather it's ruach givura, spiritual strength. Now, by the way, or better stated, strength of the spirit, inner strength. I will say, by the way, I'll give you an incredible mashal. Front page of the Wall Street Journal today, there was a fascinating article. You know, Ukraine is waging a lot of their wars, like a lot of their offensive against Russians with drones. So they had this article about that there was this Russian soldier who was stuck in one of these trenches. There was a Ukrainian drone that was following him, dropping these small little bombs, like Bamalach, all over the place, right? And the guy finally motions up to the drone, like he puts his hands up. Like he surrendered to the drone. So who is this guy? So they had the whole profile on this guy. Who is this guy? He was drafted. He doesn't want to be there. He has no interest in fighting this battle, no interest in fighting this war. Right? So what happens? He surrenders to a drone. Why? Because there's no ruach givura. There's no inner strength. Again, this is not a slight against this guy. This guy, what am I fighting for? Like, what is this? I don't want to be here. This is not my battle. This is not my fight. So I'll surrender to anyone. Just get me the heck out of this, right? I don't want to be in this. See, I will say, was that soldier stronger than the drone? It's possible. You could shoot. I guess you could shoot down a drone. I don't know how you fight a drone, right? I fight with Balabatim. I don't fight with drones, right? So it could be, right? But Lamais, like, I don't know. It's so interesting to surrender to a drone. It's fascinating. I will say, but why? What was the chap with this soldier? He didn't have ruach givura. Again, I want to be clear. I'm not indicting this Russian soldier. I'm saying, like, he's probably, who knows why he's there, right? Who knows why he's there? But one thing is, I guarantee you is, he does not want to be fighting this war. He does not. So that's as Piagetsta says, it's not a function of how physically strong you are. See, I will say, because I'll tell you why. If the guy who was in that trench was fighting for something he believed in, when you're fighting with something you believe in, no surrender. There's no surrender at all. It's not a shayla. You'll fight to the last bullet, right? You'll fight whatever you have to do. And if you have to give your life, you'll give your life because you're fighting for something. You have that ruach givura. But when you don't have ruach givura, when you don't have ruach givura, when you don't have that inner strength, then by definition you cannot be successful in the battles of life. That's why it says the Piajetzna, the Torah, when it speaks about the exemptions, who gets exempted? Not a guy who's weak, but mi hayore v'rach halevav. Who is the person who is afraid and has a soft heart? What's the definition of a soft heart? He goes on, he says, so he says, a soft heart is a person without inner strength, without inner conviction, without inner self-control, as we're going to see. Watch this. He says, he'll say many times in life, we end up falling prey to our desires. He'll say, it's all of us, right? We'll say, I want to tell you something. This statement, I believe, is unequivocally true for every single one of us. The only variable is, what's your vice? Which desire? Whatever you okay, each of us have to fill in our own blank, right? But Lamaisa, all of us fall prey to our taivas. It's the nature of the human condition. Now I will say, why? This to me, I have to say, this piece has changed my life. I know I say it every week, but this week it really changed my life. I will say, the whole chap is, there are many things that change your life. The shayla just is, do you choose to perpetuate and sustain that change after you go ahead and you learn the piece? So, Piajetzna changes our life every single week. The shayla just is, do we sustain the change after we go ahead and we leave? So we'll say, now watch this. Says the Piajetzna, we fall prey to our taivas all the time. Lo mipnei shetavasa meruba. Now we'll say, what's interesting? Sometimes a person falls prey to his taivas. Why? Because we'll say, you can have a person who has an addiction. Now we know that an addiction, right? An addiction has its roots, right, in mental health, right? I will say, sometimes, people who don't understand addictions will often say, like, just stop it, right? Just stop with the gambling. Just stop with the pornography. Just stop with the this. Just stop it. What they don't realize, we'll say, is that often an addiction is no different than cancer, right? In other words, you don't tell a person who has cancer, just get better already. Come on, come on, just have a positive attitude, right? And the cancer will go away. There's a physical element. So an addiction, I will say, operates in the same way. That's why, again, when you speak to addicts, right, it's fascinating to see, right? True addicts, right? Or not true. Addicts are always in recovery, right? It's fascinating. At least as far as I know, no one ever says, I'm recovered. See, for cancer, you could be in remission, right? You can, Mirat Hashem, right? That person could come out of it. In addiction, it's fascinating. In the world of addictions, you're always in recovery. I've been so right. You're in a state of sobriety. I've been sober for. It's a fascinating idea. So the Piajetzna says, so leaving addictions out of this, because sometimes a person could struggle with different types, but that's really an addiction. So we're going to leave addictions out because the truth is, addictions have their own Torah, right? They're part of a different framework. We're talking about us, right? Hopefully, again, we're not struggling with addictions, but again, we have our struggles. So it says the Piajetzna, why is it that I'm always falling prey to my task? So we'll say, take a moment over here, and whatever you say, don't say it out loud, but think about, right, something you struggle with. Don't say it out loud because it's not confession; it's wrong religion, right? All it's going to do is embarrass you, right? So the Ma'aseh said, think about something that you struggle with on an ongoing level. Always, right? Maybe I could keep a couple of days like this, or a couple of weeks, maybe even like a couple of months. But the Ma'aseh, there's this one thing that I seems to always lapse back into. So the Piajetzna says, think about that. Why? Why is it that I can't get myself on the right path with this thing? In other words, there's no ambiguity. I know I want to stop doing it. I know that it's not good for me. I know that it's healthy. I know that the negatives far outweigh any type of benefit. So why do I keep doing it? He goes on, he says, this is incredible. He says, not because the taiva is so enjoyable. Rather, lo ruach givura v'lo ruach hamosha ala b'kirbo. Do you know why? Says the Piajetzna, because I don't have inner strength. Because I don't have inner strength. That's it. That's it. Why do I keep looking at the things I'm not supposed to look at? Why do I keep engaging in the behaviors I'm not supposed to engage in? Why? It's not because, oh my God, my taivas are so overwhelming that I can't conquer them. I don't possess inner strength. That's what it is. I don't possess inner strength. Again, it's no different, right, than the person who says, I'm not going to eat, on a basic level, I'm not going to eat desserts. I'm not going to eat desserts, right? And then what happens? The cake is right there, right? All 72 layers, because like Zecher the Sanhedrin, right? Because I want to be from about my desserts, right? So everything is there. I'm not going to eat it. And I will say, what happens, right? 3 minutes later, it's like all over my face, it's on my shirt, right? Full body immersive experience. Let's say, what happened there? But if we just analyze it, now again, it's a very simplistic example. What happened there? No willpower. No self-control. It's not the shot that what? Like, I suddenly have like a significant caloric dip and I needed something to replenish my blood pressure. Come on. Right? It's that it's sitting there and I could not control myself. I could not control myself. I would say, how many things in life that we do wrong are simply that same exact dynamic? I'm just not able. And I want to even take away the word. It's not able, because not able makes it sound like it's beyond you, right? Right. I'm unwilling. I'm unwilling to exercise self-control. I'm unwilling to exercise self-control with the chocolate cake. I'm unwilling to exercise self-control with the internet. I'm unwilling to exercise self-control. We'll say, that's it. Says the Piazetzna. That's why at the end of the day, I keep circling back to the same set of issues over and over and over and over. I'm unwilling to exercise proper self-control. That's why I said, we're taking addictions out of this, because an addictive person or addictive behaviors could be something different. But just regular people like us who fall prey to these taivas all the time, I'm just unwilling. It's important sometimes to name it for what it is. I'm unwilling. It hurts when you say it. It hurts when you read it, because it makes it just hurts. It hurts because I have so many good excuses for why I do the things that I do. And now the Piazetzna pretty much kind of blew them all out of the water. He's like, no, you do the things that you do because you choose not to exercise self-control. No different than I chose to eat the piece of chocolate cake, not because suddenly I felt like some type of, maybe I'm like a gilgul of the cake is a gilgul of me, we're meant to be together, right? It's the Ratzon Abore, we should just, no, I can't. It sounds good though, right? It sounds very healing. It does sound very good, right? It works better with a piece of kishka, right? Because that's a Yiddish Shemaichel, again, I'm just unwilling to exercise self-control. And when I'm unwilling to exercise self-control, then by definition, I keep finding myself in the same place over and over again. He goes on. He says, "Shiyuchal izkarber lilchom v'lim shobal tavas gama chalasha." I'm unwilling to exercise the self-control that is necessary to help me overcome my demons. Yes?
Is there a difference between things which you do that you're not supposed to be doing because you can't have self-control, or things that you know you should be doing but don't do?
I think, look, here he's clearly talking about the former and not the latter. Right? He's talking about the stormei ra over here. Right. But I would think you could definitely apply this. In other words, inaction is often a lack of self-control also. In other words, I know I should be doing something. I'm choosing not to propel myself to do that. Why? Because I'd rather do nothing. I'd rather do nothing. But it's also, in other words, what is self-control? You see, we often look at the word self-control as holding myself back from doing something. But even if you look at the words themselves, self-control means I control the self. That could just as easily apply to positive dynamic activity as it could apply to negative. I think it applies both. Again, to be clear, the Piazetzna is clearly using it in the realm of negative behavior, in abstention. There's something I should not be doing. I should be holding myself back. I'm choosing not to exercise self-control, and therefore, again, I'm doing it. I would say, which by itself just, I don't know. I saw this today. I was like the light bulb went off. That's actually all it is. That's actually all it is. I'm choosing not to exercise self-control and just indulge whatever it is that I want. That's what I'm doing. Look at Piaget goes on. He says, Ume'ata. Listen to us, and this is an incredible piece. Ume'ata. Kama arevim lanu divrei chazal shadarshu al hayori v'rach haleva. So remember again, for those of us who are learning the daf, this was a Mishnah Masechah Sota. Machlokes, Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yossi Haglili. What is the definition, right? The Kohen Mashuach Melchama gets up and he says, okay guys, here are the people exempted from going out to battle. Hayare, right? Yare, person who's scared. V'rach haleva, soft of heart. So remember again, there was Machlokes in the Mishnah. What does it mean, scared and soft of heart? Scared of what? Rabbi Akiva said about, remember, Rabbi Akiva say, Hayare, Rabbi Yosef Galili said, Hayare me'averos shebiyado. Now we'll say, how do we translate that? When we learn that, how do we translate the phrase? Yar misyar me'averos shebiyado. What is he afraid of? What is he afraid of? His averus. He's afraid of his averus. Right? That the guy's saying, look, you know what? I don't really want to go to battle because I know that I've committed a whole bunch of averus. I've sinned a lot. And so, when you put yourself in danger, often again, that's when your ledger is opened up and your deeds are examined. I don't want to put myself in a makom sakana. So that's how we translate that phrase. Misari, he's afraid of averos shebiyado. Of the averos literally in his hand, but means of the averos that he has committed. Look at the Piaget that says, do you realize the power in that statement? Ha-averos biyodohin. The averos are in my hand. So what does it mean the averos are in my hand? What does it mean they're in my hand? I control my life. Or better stated, I control my actions. The averos are biyado. See, I both say very often when we look at sin, the way we kind of give ourselves a pass is you just say, the temptation was too great. Which is almost as if I'm not in control of what I do. Meanwhile, the Kohen says, what does the Kohen say? Anyone who is Yarei V'rach Alevav, he's afraid. What are you afraid of? Averos Shebiyado. You're afraid of the averos you committed. That's fine, you can go back, but just understand. Do you know why though you committed those averos? Not because you were powerless. Those averos were in your hand. They were in your hand. And you can make the choice to act, or you can make the choice to exercise self-restraint. That is my decision. And that's why the Piaget says the Mishnah Dafka uses that lashon of averos shebiyado. Could have just said, who is afraid of their averos? Their averos. Why averos shebiyado? Because there's a little bit of musar that the Kohen is giving as well. Okay, you want to go back because you're afraid of your averos? That's fine. But just understand, you have self-control. You've just chosen not to exercise it. You have the power to determine the direction of your spiritual life. You've chosen not to exercise it. The averos are biyadcha. The ability to sin or not to sin is wholly and solely up to you.
I have a question.
Sure.
Does he mean the sins that he's in other words, there's two ways of looking at that statement. Because you've sinned, God's going to punish you and you're going to get a grenade exploded on you. Or I'm not worried about dying, I'm worried about going to get judged after I die.
Oh, it could mean either one.
Either one?
It could mean either one. Yeah, he's not really, the Piaget is not really delving so much into that, like into the psychology of like why the soldier would go back. I think it could be either of those two. Either of those two. But really what the point that Piaget is trying to bring out from this is, who's going back from war? Well, so here's really what it comes down to. I understand the guy who got married and hasn't lived with his wife. The guy who built a home and hasn't lived in it. The guy who, planted a vineyard and hasn't reaped the fruits from it because he's going to be preoccupied. You can't have preoccupied soldiers. When a soldier goes out to war, there's one thing and one thing only he needs to be thinking about, which is the battle. The battle and the guy next to him. That's it. That's the entirety. You can't. So therefore, again, but we understand some people are preoccupied. So if you're preoccupied, thank you for showing up. Go back home. Who is the fourth guy being dismissed? And why is he being dismissed? So the guy who's scared. Everybody will say, everybody's scared. Everybody's scared, right? And who's not scared of going out to battle? Again, scared doesn't have to mean like your knees are knocking against each other, but everybody has a fear. Anyone who, both say, any person who doesn't have a fear of dying probably is not leading a very meaningful and impactful life. Everyone has a fear of dying. Of course. So what are you afraid of? So the Gemara says, averos shebiyado. Piaget says, so is there someone who doesn't have averos? Let's say, can you imagine, by the way, Kohen Mashuach Milchama, says, okay, anyone who's committed Averos, go home. Well, say, by the way, what happens after that announcement is made?
No,
Guys, barbecue at my house tonight, right? You know, let's say, there's crickets. It's crickets afterwards. So, who is the Kohen sending home? So the Piaget's is saying the Kohen is sending home the people, not just if everybody's committed Averos. What he's saying is, Chevra, who lacks self-control? Who lacks self-control? Because if you lack self-control, that means you lack inner strength. And if you lack inner strength, you are not fit for this army. Go home. Because wars are not won with physical strength. Wars are won with inner strength. We need soldiers who have self-control. We need soldiers, ultimately, again, who have inner strength. And if you had Averos Shebiyado, if you don't have inner strength, you don't have self-control, better for you not. There are other ways you could help the effort, but not here in the war. Yes.
Isn't there an additional dimension which has to do with the motivation behind the war itself? When I think of the guy you're talking about who surrendered to the drone, we know a lot of the Russian soldiers don't
want to be there.
In the cause.
Right.
They don't believe in the cause. Now, is that a weakness of heart? Or is it just a lack of motivation because there's no alignment with
Correct.
the
So
goal? You know what I mean?
100%. So I was using that example of the Russian soldier, not really as an example of weakness, just of a fact that wars are won by people with inner strength. So this guy, correct, he might be a really good guy who was just forced to. He might be. By the way, one could even make the argument that there was a form of strength in surrendering to the drone, knowing that, like, where is he going home to? Where's the guy? I can't believe he's being welcomed back into Mother Russia, right? In other words, what's happening to his family? You know, so again, I was just using it as an example, just to show the Piaget's that's saying wars are not won with physical strength. They're won ultimately, again, with inner physical strength, with inner spiritual strength. So he goes on, listen to this. He says, V'chala God, v'achisarnhu shu yori v'rach halevav. So he'll say, sometimes when we sin, it's not because the taivas are so strong. It's simply because we lack inner strength. Inner strength meaning self-restraint. And that inner strength has not yet revealed itself upon me. Aval ishat sava. So we'll say, is this not incredible? So first of all, what he's saying is, in general, first of all, in terms of the actual army, the people we want are people with inner strength. Inner strength is manifest through self-control. So often in life, we'll say, why do we get ourselves in trouble? So we like to say, I have such strong taivas, strong desires, and I can't fight against them, and they're too overwhelming. Again, you might have strong taivas, but at the end of the day, when I give in to them, why did I give in to them? Why? Because at the end of the day, I am not exercising self-control. I am not exercising inner strength. So the Piaget says something amazing. He says, Aval ishat sav. So therefore, I will say, obviously, we see from here that what? We see from here that the goal in life. I will say, so now let's kind of bring this full circle. How do you know that something is inspirational in life? How do you know that something is a truly inspirational moment? How do you know? Self-restraint. Right? If ultimately, again, the moment of inspiration leads you to a heightened level of self-control and self-restraint, then at the end of the day, that's called inspiration. So now I will say, so now the Piaget says, okay, let's talk about this. So now I really recognize that the key to successful living is self-restraint. So I will say, what becomes $1 million question? What becomes $1 million question? How do I get it? How do I get it? I will say, I've been struggling my whole life. I will say, so now I know, by the way, like the light bulb went off. The source of my entire problem in life, challenges in life, is a lack of self-restraint. I simply am unwilling, not unable to hold myself back from indulging the things that I want. So how do I change it? So I'll say, here we go. This is incredible. Did I mention this is incredible? I'll say, now it's even more good. Watch this. Look what he writes. He says, Aval, ha'ishat sava, im yamtin ad asher yovel l'milchama neged sonei nafsho, va'az yirtza le'eschazek u'legalos bekirba ruach gvura, lo yoel v'lo yifal mu'uma. Now listen, I watch this. If the soldier says, okay, I'm ready to start working on the self-restraint. And when am I going to start? On my inner strength. When am I going to start? I'm going to start right when we get into battle. We'll say, good idea, bad idea. Bad idea. You will say it's no different. It's no different than like the guy who's suddenly again in infantry and says, you know what, I've really been looking to shed these 50 pounds for the last couple of years. Now that I'm in infantry, now I'm going to start. Yeah, good luck, right? Good luck with that. In other words, you want to be prepared for war. Preparation for war ultimately begins way before you're on the front line of battle. So you want to be the soldier who has inner strength that comes from self-restraint. That process doesn't begin when you're called up for duty. That process already begins in your civilian life. Why I will say? Because if I show up to the war and I'm not in physical shape, or I show up to the war and I'm not in spiritual strength, by the time I get my act together, the enemy already has his foot on my throat. I'm already done. I can't wait to get things together until I'm already in the battle. The work, the inner strength has to be cultivated before the battle has begun. V'ra umar loaz, evetu kivar levolo sar moshel, v'rak terem od yoriv im sonov b'shar shodena b'bayis v'shalom lo b'bayis v'achutz lo miru es atzmo megara umegala b'kibaruch gvura. I will say, when does the soldier have to work on cultivating a sense of inner strength? When does the soldier work on it? When does he work on it? Before he gets to war. In his civilian life, he's already working on cultivating a sense of, now you see what's happening over here, right? In other words, I need to be able to create a sense of self-control so that when I am faced with the destructive desires of life, the taivas, I'm able to say no. I'm able to say no. That's my goal, Bosai. I want to be able to say no. I want to be able to draw a line and say, I am not doing this. But I can't work on that sense of self-control when I'm faced with the temptation. Because if I don't have it at the time that I'm faced, I'm going to give into it. I have to work on the self-control even before the temptation takes place. Look what Rabbi will say. Don't wait to work on self-control. Don't wait to work on self-control until ultimately, again, you're faced with temptation. So I will say, why? Because again, I will say, if I'm working on self-control, I will say, this is very important. Clinical tests have shown that those who work on self-control when being faced with desire, choose desire. You've read the same study, right? Or you've lived the same life that I've lived, right? I will say, at the end of the day, if you're cultivating self-control in the midst of it, you're going to fail. Self-control has to be worked on, not in the face of desire. Just like the soldier can't work on his inner strength when he's facing the enemy. He's got to work on that in boot camp. He's got to work on that in training. He's got to work on that in civilian life. Self-control can't be cultivated when you're literally sitting opposite the desire. It's got to be cultivated before. He goes example. He says, "O afilu." Now I will say, how do you do this? Here it is. I will say, here it is. "O afilu taiva shel heter rakayim estirei." Quotes over here his father. L'chaber esamilas l'machshava b'chol dvarach afilu b'davar heter. So I will say, he gives an example. He says, sometimes this is fascinating. Sometimes the process of cultivating self-control, I will say, is not in the realm of that which is prohibited. I will say, right? When we think about self-control, so what do we think about? What do I think about? I think about, okay, there's something I really want, but it's prohibited. And self-control says, I'm going to work on myself. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. Okay. So I will say, so now what? So now, the Piagestan says, how do you get to that level? I will say, is this not what we all struggle with in life? How do I get to that level when I'm faced with something that I know is not good for me, but I want it? I enjoy it. It's pleasurable. I want to find the strength to say no. Says the Piagestan, how do you do it? Listen to the exercise I will say. He says it doesn't start with exercising self-control with that which is prohibited. It starts with exercising self-control with that which is permitted. Watch this, I will say. This is going to blow your mind. Where's Reb Steve? You're going to love this one, by the way. Listen to this. He says, Harbe Pamim. That came out wrong. I didn't mean, you're going to see why. No. You're going to see the example he gives. The example he gives is great. Watch this. Harbe Pamim. He says, Timone Mehem. Afim ein dvarim shel iser. Va'af taiva chazak ilam. Both say, sometimes the goal in life is exercise self-restraint with something that's not complicated. I was supposed to say, when we think about self-restraint, like, where does self-restraint come in? I really want something, and it's really prohibited, but I really want it. No, I was say, how do you build up that ability to exercise self-restraint in the face of something that you really want that is prohibited? You start with something easy. You start with something easy, something that's actually not that complicated. But I build up within myself a sense of self-control. We'll say, look at his mashal. Look what his mashal is. Tenase, we'll say, get ready for this. Get ready for this. Tenase kepam b'pam b'dvarim kali arach. Start creating self-control with little things. L'mashal, lishtos lepamim kave below tzukar. Try drinking your coffee without sugar. That's right. Try drinking your coffee without sugar. Right? Stevia, right? You guys know, right? I will say, I want to show you something amazing. I don't know, what is he giving an example over here? I like coffee with sugar. Try exercising some level of self-control. Now, I will say, is there anything wrong with drinking coffee with sugar? No, of course not. But Lamaisa, give you just one minute. But Lamaisa, start by building up a concept of self-controlling yourself. Show yourself that you could say no to something that you want. So I like my coffee. Ultimately, again, with sugar and with milk and with this and that. Take away one of those things. And I will say, by the way, it doesn't even have to be just take it away every day. Take it away one day. Take it away one day. Show yourself that you could say no to something you like and you enjoy. And I will say, again, what am I doing? I'm building up the inner muscle of self-control. I will say, I read a beautiful story of Gershon Edelstein, who just passed away. There was a beautiful story that I saw that one time he had asked his son for a cup of tea. So his son said to Tzaddik, Tati, what would you like in the tea? So he said, I'll take, tea with 2 sugars. So his son goes, and before he goes, Gershon calls back and says, you know what? I don't need the sugar. So he goes, calls his son back and says, you know what? I don't need the tea bag. I'll take a cup of hot water. And I will say, so what was the godless of that story? What was he doing? This is one of the Gedolei Hadar. What was he doing? He was building up a sense of self-control. Would I like the tea with? Sure. I don't need it. I want to show myself that I don't need certain things. Because I will say, if I could drink the coffee without the sugar, then what that shows me is, I have self-control. Shkoyach, you have self-control not to go ahead and drink coffee with sugar. It is a shkoyach. Because if I have self-control to not drink coffee with sugar, that shows that the concept or the midah of self-control is embedded within me. And if I could use it for this, I could certainly use it for bigger things as well. Chad, what were you going to say?
Yeah, I guess you probably answered to that. I was going to ask that example would be, not drinking the tea with sugar. That was maybe for somebody who has a title for gluttony. That next time they have the steak in front of them, they're like,
oh, we're going to get to steak in it. We're going to get to steak. Good. We'll get to steak in a second.
If somebody has different, if somebody has a smoking or whatever, something unrelated to food, then it's is that still the same?
Absolutely, because what you're building up is a sense of restraint. What you're showing yourself is, I could say no to something that I want. I will say, it's interesting. They say in the world of dieting, one of the keys to successful dieting, they have all these fad diets and everything. What's the key? They say, I don't know what the key is, but I'm trying to figure it out. But is portion control. Portion control. See, it's not really about what you eat. That's not really what it's about. Because you can go on any of these fad diets, lose a lot, and then people put it right back on. It's portion. What's portion control? In other words, what's the problem sometimes is I don't want. It's not that I can't control my intake. I choose not to. What does portion control say? What is portion control? I'm going to stop here, but I really want more. I'm making a choice. Again, I'm a little hypocritical talking about this, right? But right? I'm making a choice. To stop here. I'm making a choice not to have sugar. I'm just making that choice. And I want to be clear. I know you think it is, oh God, but I really like coffee with sugar, right? I like coffee with sweetener. I say, it doesn't have to be every day. It's just that sometimes even when a person is struggling with something in life, I think what the PHS is supposed to imagine the following. Imagine for a moment a person is struggling with some Avera, whatever, you fill in your own blank, right? Struggling with Avera. And I feel like so helpless to stop myself from engaging in it. What the PHS would sort of say is, you know what? The next morning, don't have your coffee with sugar, right? Why? I really that's the answer to my problems? No, but what that shows me is if I could exercise restraint in this area, then I could exercise restraint in other areas as well. He goes on to Chad's point. Both say, take a look at page. He says, let's finish. Hashem says, through exercising these small steps of self-restraint, tuchal la'amod gam b'kishrei milchama gedola shehu neged nafshecha v'nishmasecha. Both say, it's incredible. Through small steps of self-restraint, what will you come to do? Exercise big levels of self-restraint. I will say, is this not absolutely incredible? The whole key to successful living is inner strength. Inner strength as manifest, ultimately, again, of self-control. And how does self-control, I will say, I think the reason why the PHS doesn't my Rebbe, and the reason why I have eternal gratitude, because I will say, I realized my mistake. My whole life, I've been working on self-control and combating the big things. But here's the problem. What did the PHS say? If you're working on self-control with confronted with the big desire, you're going to fail. You're going to fail. Not because I don't care, not because I'm not a good guy. It's just the nature. It's no different than the soldier who decides to, start, hey, I've never worked on holding a firearm before. You know what? The enemy's here. It might be a great time to pick this up, right? He puts on a YouTube video, right? And he's got the whole thing, okay? He's going to die, right? He's going to get shot, right? And he's not going to hit anything. Why? Because he's not prepared. He's not prepared. You can't go ahead and start building up self-control when confronted with the taivas of life. This is the epiphany, I will say. The process of creating a sense of self-control which will help me say no to the big things begins not with the big things. It begins with the little things. And if I could begin for myself just to begin to exercise a sense of self-control, to say no to the little things that are totally permitted, totally mutter, but to say no to them just to show that I have the power of self-control, then I'm building up my self-control muscle, then I'm building up inner strength, so that when I am faced with something bigger, I will have the koach to say no. We'll stop over here for tonight. We have more to do, Amiras Hashem, on the scene, so we're gonna finish up this topic, Amiras Hashem, next week. But I will say, a lot to think about. I think our homework for this week, is to go no sugar, right? No sugar. I will tell you something interesting. Except in sheer, because someone else thinks about coffee, I actually started drinking my coffee black. Not for this reason. Just because right? No. Sheer is the one place I have something in my coffee. I will say, I will. All right, that's done. Good. All right, I asked for it. Maybe a little bit of milk. You could with all the sugar. I will say, so it's interesting. The truth is, I started doing it for a totally different reason. Is because I drink so much coffee. It's lost its joy. It's much more of a utilitarian drink. So I might as well not waste the time or the money with other additives. So I drink it cold, I drink it black. And that way it just gets in, does its work, and that's it. So I'll tell you, like now with the Piaget's now, it's interesting. It takes on like a different meaning. But I will say, I think our homework for this week is also to try to figure out how to exercise self-control, but not with your big taivas, not with the big stuff. How do we build up our self-control muscle? How could we find 3 times in the coming week where I could have an opportunity to have something? 3 times. It's a whole week. Right? No, 3 times. No, because these are little things. Because these are episodic. These are episodic things. In other words, the ability just to go ahead. All right, fine. I'll share with you one more thing, because let's just finish this up, because you'll see what. I'll say, he gives the I'll just say it outside. He gives the example, I will say, of a picture where he talks about like eating. He says, a person shouldn't deprive themselves of food. Eat till you're full. I will say, but he says, like, here's an example. This is Chad's example. Let's say a person has a choice between steak and chicken. Steak and chicken. You're like, no brainer. Right, unless you're a woman, right? Okay, so if you're a man, no. I'm saying only a woman. No, I'm just saying again, only my wife. No. Oh my gosh, this is such a woke crowd over here. This is incredible. No. That's what I'm saying. At the end of the day, my wife will choose a piece of chicken over steak. That's what she will do. I think very often. But again, but Lamaising, I will say, as Piagetna says, I'm very disappointed in all of you, by the way. I'm very disappointed. You know what? Next week, you're all getting little drinks with umbrellas in it. That's what you all deserve over here. Good. So Lamaisa, ridiculous. Bud Light. You're all getting Bud Light, right? Sponsored by Nehemiah. Right? So I'll say something amazing. He speaks over here. He says you have that choice. He actually says it is you have like a choice between like a nice cut of meat and like a lesser cut of meat. Piaget says, I will say, is there anything wrong with having the nicer cut of meat? Is there anything wrong with it? No. But he says for yourself, don't take it. Don't take it. And I will say, I'm just pointing out, he's giving examples. These are all examples, right? And this goes to Chad. In other words, again, especially meat and chicken. So again, I usually like the meat, but you know what? To show myself that I could say no to something, I'm going to have the chicken and not the meat. You could fill it. In other words, the examples are immaterial. It doesn't matter. You choose what fits for you. I will say, but the point over here is, take something that is innocuous. That's the whole point of it. Take something that in the grand scheme of things, I will say, it doesn't matter if you eat chicken or meat. It doesn't matter if you drink the coffee with the sugar. It doesn't matter. But that's the point. Because it doesn't matter, what I'm showing is I could say no to something. And because I can say no to something, I'm about to say innocuous, also means that I can say no to something more dramatic. So that's our avoda this week. 3 times, not one. Come on, 3 times over the course of a week. Let's say to exercise that willpower, and to be able to say no, to be able to see something that is permitted, but to say, you know what? I'm saying no to it. Why? Why am I saying no to it? I'm saying no to it not because I can't have it, but because I want to show myself that I have the power of self-determination, that I have the power of self-control. And I will say that Piaget assures us that if we exercise this ability in the realm of that which is permitted, when faced with real desire, we will be better equipped. We'll be soldiers, armed with the right ammunition to resist temptation. However, tonight, Shkoyach. Low hanging.